today is not what is in your bulletin. Instead, it is small steps. Making small changes in our everyday lives can make a big difference. None of us remembers when we were just venturing out into the big world of our family's home as we took our first baby steps. However, we've probably all had the experience of watching other children begin to take their first steps. It's amazing how curious, courageous, and unstoppable those little people are, isn't it? They stumble and fall and get right back up again to do the same thing over and over until they get it right. Then what pride we see on their little faces. It is a big accomplishment and they know it. What a grand beginning. Little people really know the meaning of springing forward, don't they? When my little Kathleen sprang forward when she was a little tyke, it was boundless energy. From the time she got up, always sunrise, until she finally went to bed in the evening. I felt guided about the title for this talk. And then I waited and waited for further guidance to come from Spirit, knowing it would come. As Reverend Patricia Bass said, I'm not asking for much. All I want is a little guidance. A burning bush would be nice. A few words written in the sky. Some days I'd even settle for a particularly relevant fortune cookie. Please, God, just give me clarity in the midst of my confusion. But alas, I've yet to discover a message emblazoned on the horizon. I've never seen a burning bush. And my most recent fortune cookie instructed me to learn Chinese. The truth is, we live in Spirit's wisdom. Like a fish in search of water, we are swimming in wisdom all the time, but we just don't know it. Guidance is not something for which we have to grasp. It is something to which we attune. End of quote. Asking for Spirit's guidance is extremely important. Then we are to be still and listen. As Mary Kupferle wrote in her book, God Will See You Through, trust the Spirit within. Trust the Spirit within to give you the right ideas to solve anything in your life that needs solving. Trust the Spirit within to illumine your mind. Truly, truly, trust Spirit. Listening is the next step. I like what Christina Baldwin says in her book, The Seven Whispers. She says, we need to slow way down and move at the pace of guidance. Speed is some guy running through the airport shouting into a cell phone. Pace is going around the block with a 3-year-old and noticing everything the child is noticing. When we move at pace, we have time to question and time to look for answers before moving on. When we move at the pace of guidance, it occurs to us to wonder what plans the divine might have for us in the midst of the plans we have for ourselves. Baldwin also says, speed tends to cancel out our guidance and keeps us out of touch with spirit. End quote. Of course, the best way to move at the pace of guidance is to meditate regularly. If you are like me, however, there are times when you can't seem to meditate for whatever reason. Then what we need to do is to give thanks for the many blessings we have and continue to give thanks. Before long, we will be back to meditating again. Meditation teaches us to listen for the still small voice of Spirit's guidance. Probably the most important action we can take is to be present and aware at all times. I recall a dreary morning last March, before any trees were blooming, when I opened the blinds leading to the side porch and became joyfully aware that the tree in my neighbor's yard was completely alight with yellow blooms. So beautiful on a dreary day near the end of March. After that, other trees simply exploded into bloom. I truly love spring. In the book, 1 Minute Wisdom by Anthony DeMello, he tells the story of a student who asked his spiritual master, "Where shall I look for spiritual enlightenment?" The master responded simply, "Here." The student wasn't satisfied and asked the master what he should be looking for and how exactly he should look. The master said, just to look at anything and everything and look in the ordinary way. The frustrated student asked, "But don't I always look in the ordinary way?" The master said, "No, because to look, you must be here. You're mostly somewhere else." We really do live in a field of divine intelligence, and it is not withholding itself from us. Right here, in this moment, is where the guidance is, and it's up to us to decide to be present. To notice the metaphoric burning bush, we must be as observant or a 3-year-old, or we will walk right past it. Attuning to Spirit's wisdom requires us to be open to the timing and open to the guidance. The answer we receive may not be the one we've ever considered. Patricia Bass states, "I vividly recall the night I prayed fervently to know the next step in my career path. Boy, was I surprised when I awoke the next morning to the guidance that I was to become a Unity minister. It was not something I'd ever dreamed of, nor was it something I wanted. Nevertheless, the inner knowing was irrefutable." End quote. And divine guidance is always right for us, whether we realize it at the time or not. Interesting how that works. Guidance comes in many forms, in many ways. It may be a line in a book that seems to light up for you. This actually happened to me once. It may be a feather on your path or a cardinal in a tree. It may be something someone says, or it may be a little voice in your head that sounds like you or doesn't sound like you. It's happened to me both ways. When you have the feeling or just the sense that something seems important and right, it really is. It's Spirit's guidance. So often we let ourselves be talked out of believing in those little things, thinking they're not common sense. Remember, common sense is not always spirit sense. Here's a clever little story from a book by Cynthia Bourgeault entitled The Wisdom Way of Knowing. This little story is titled Acornology. Once upon a time, in a land not so far away, there was a kingdom of acorns nestled at the foot of a grand old oak tree. Since the citizens of this kingdom were modern, fully westernized acorns, they went about their life with a purposeful energy. And since they were midlife baby boomer acorns, they engaged in a lot of self-help courses. There were seminars called Getting All You Want Out of Your Shell and Who Would You Be Without Your Nutty Story? There were woundedness and recovery groups for acorns who had been bruised in their fall from the tree. There were spas for oiling and polishing those shells, and various acornopathic therapies to enhance longevity and well-being. One day, in the midst of this kingdom, there suddenly appeared a naughty little stranger. Naughty as in Knotty. Apparently dropped out of the blue by a passing bird. He was capless and dirty, making an immediate negative impression on his fellow acorns. And to make matters worse, crouched beneath the mighty oak tree, he stammered out a wild tale. Pointing up to the tree, he said, "We are that." Delusional thinking, obviously, the other acorns concluded. But out of curiosity, they continued to engage him in conversation. So tell us, how do we become that tree? Well, said he, pointing downward, it has something to do with going into the ground and cracking open the shell. Insane, they responded. Totally morbid. Why, then we wouldn't be acorns anymore. Well, as we know, an acorn is a seed, and its nature and destiny is to become an oak tree. We too are seeds. Our nature and destiny is to become. We are the divine in expression. We are not broken, but blessed. Our thoughts, words, and actions are creative. When we can crack open and go into the ground of our being, a world of growth and possibility opens before us. Quoting Reverend Patricia Bass one more time, we often forget God is ready to give us guidance. She says she sometimes muddles along about something, and a friend will say, "Have you prayed about it?" And then she remembers. She says, and I quote, "Truth be told, I often haven't." Asking for Spirit's guidance is important because it is a statement of faith. It immediately declares our intention to hear Spirit, and it sets us up to listen. End of quote. Earlier, we talked about spiritual steps. And according to the Unity pamphlet, Courage to Imagine, listening is the next step. One of my favorite quotes from the Bible is, "Be still and know that I am God." It seems really important to focus on that phrase at times and to withdraw from the busy world we live in. I am so blessed. I can do that easily. I can feel that easily by stepping out my front or side door. One morning this past spring, when I brought in the newspaper, I had to stop and focus on the beautiful Annabelle hydrangeas blooming next to the front steps. Earlier, I had pruned them way down to the ground in some places because it was apparent they hadn't been pruned closely in years, and there was lots of dead wood. It seemed to me that although they needed pruning, they would be slow to bloom. And yet here they were, blooming profusely, just as much or more than my Annabelle bushes on the other side of the house. Those and the oak leaf hydrangea blooms stopped me in my tracks, and I just breathed in the beauty and paused a few moments and said, "Thank you, God." I stopped, looked, and tuned in to Divine Spirit. For me, flower gazing is a short form of connecting with Spirit, because connecting can take many forms, can't it? We will know God's guidance when we simply know and when we feel peace afterward. Spirit's guidance may come just like that, out of nowhere. Guidance may be unexpected. It may even be unwanted. But as we examine it, we know it is the perfect answer. Since our last minister left, we have prospered greatly from Reverend Eliza's guidance through the wonderful workshops she has given us. We have released feelings from the past, feelings we didn't even know we had. We have become very close to each other, and we've learned new, more positive ways of solving issues faced by us individually and collectively. challenges we often didn't even realize we had. We have grown so close, and we have grown spiritually as well. It was a happy surprise for all of us to realize there is very little difference in the way we all perceive issues and our Unity family. Each of us takes small steps, sometimes seeming like baby or toddler steps, but they slowly, gently guide us to our good, to divine spirit, and to the close, loving congregation we have become. Divine spirit is where peace, love, wisdom, and life reside, and we are so grateful. And so it is. Namaste. Let us each take 1 or 2 deep breaths, relaxing completely, releasing any concerns we may have, and releasing any body tension. We open our hearts to our special quiet time. Peace. Sweet, sweet peace. We center ourselves in our heart space, aware of our quiet breathing. We express our gratitude to Spirit for love, for peace, for guidance and divine order. We let go and let God be God in us. We are grateful for the abundance in our lives, grateful for our families, for our homes. Grateful for each other. And for the gifts we have received from Divine Spirit. We feel the collective love and peace in this room. And we claim the peace that surpasses all understanding. The peace we find only with you, Divine Spirit. Peace. Peace. Sweet peace. And now we enter the silence. The silence. As we return to this time and this place, our hearts are filled with gratitude for all we have been given, and for the peace we find in your presence, Divine Spirit. Thank you, Dave. We have come to the time in our service when we give back a portion of all that we have received.